What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy, CamATL, and welcome back to another NFL video with your boy. Early on in the week, we put a lineup together, kind of just off gut call, kind of just like initial reactions to people's pricing and matchup and stuff like that. We built a lineup together. I told you guys that at the end of the week on Friday, we would come together and I would go position by position and pretty much talk about everybody that I have some interest in or guys that I don't have interest in and kind of break down my player pool, kind of shrink that player pool down a little bit and give you guys a good core of people that I am interested in on this week one NFL main slate in general. I also told you guys, comment down below for a chance to win $100 for the first video of the season. And the winner is Mac Jama. M-A-C, Jama, Jama. Make sure you hit me up on Twitter at Cam_ATL. Give me your PayPal information so I can send that over. Thank you for supporting and thank you for your comment. Thank you to everybody who put a comment in that video. Sorry that I expected to do this early morning Friday, but I forgot that we had a doctor's appointment to get the baby checked on in there and all that and make sure it's growing good and all that stuff and everything's fine with the baby. So I'm good. I'm back. I'm here to do the video and let's get straight to it. So, starting off at quarterback, you guys know me. I like to get in, kind of make my points, and just move on and get everybody talked about that we can. I'm not going to be on here for a whole hour or even 30 minutes, probably around 30 minutes maybe. All right, so sit back, relax, and let's go ahead and see how we're going to make this money this week. So, starting off, first guy that I want to talk about that's probably going to have a lot of love this week, and it's going to be Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts against Atlanta. Now, Jalen is going against an Atlanta squad that we all know was atrocious last season. Their secondary sucks. All right? I mean, they gave it up to quarterbacks last season. They were bottom in the league, allowing almost 280 passing yards per game the last 9 games of the year. They were bottom in the league, allowing a ton of pass attempts as well, which means they were, teams were throwing a lot on this team because it was just so easy to do, and Atlanta's offense was able to score as well. So it's one of those situations where a couple reasons why I like Jalen Hurts is because number one, the matchup is great against Atlanta's secondary. Number two, Atlanta's offense is solid and should be able to also score on Philly. So I'm expecting a back and forth battle here. I'm not expecting it to lean heavily to either end, and I like both sides of this game in general. All right, so yes, I like Jalen Hurts at 6'4". Are there other options cheaper than him that you can go with if you need the money? Yes, and we will go over those people. But I wanted to start with Jalen Hurts because he's a guy who is probably going to have a good bit of ownership, and I completely understand why this game is definitely a game you probably want to get exposure to. All right, now a player that a lot of people probably might be sleeping on here, and I expect big things out of him, Josh Allen. All right, Josh Allen, I get it. He's going against Pittsburgh, and it looks like it's a horrible spot, right? But Josh Allen stacked with Stephon Diggs was successful majority of the time last season. Stephon Diggs, one of the best wide receivers in the entire league. I mean, this is a solid spot here. I know it's against Pittsburgh and it seems bad, but this is one of the higher totals on the slate for Buffalo. Buffalo is one of the highest projected offensive teams on this slate. Okay, on top of that, yes, they're going against Pittsburgh, and I understand it. Pittsburgh's a solid defense, but what Josh Allen can give you on the floor and his rushing ability as well to kind of give him a solid floor here, especially in cash games, is very, very nice. And his upside that he possesses here is great as well. And on the other side, that Pittsburgh offense is solid, should be able to score. So this is another game that I expect to be back and forth. Pittsburgh defense is solid, yes, but I have complete faith in Josh Allen paired up with Stephon Diggs as a great pairing on this slate. I really like both of those guys. All right. Let's go to the more guys who are back to the guys who are probably going to have some decent ownership and a lot of eyeballs on them. Sam Darnold for Carolina. Sam Darnold is playing against his old team in the New York Jets, so he's got a little extra motivation here. The Jets are horrible. Okay, they're bottom in the league, allowing like over 2 passing touchdowns per game, almost 300 passing yards a game. I mean, it's just bad. Okay. And Sam Darnold is at home in Carolina. I do expect Carolina. I have Carolina winning this game, going against the Jets here in this one. I also think Zach Wilson is serviceable on the other side and is going to be able to score as well and keep this game fairly close as well. I don't expect a blowout here either, but Sam Darnold is only 5K. So you have to consider him as a solid value option if that's the way that you are wanting to go on this slate. There's so many solid quarterback spots this week, man. I mean, it's really gonna come down to just preference and what you're feeling and what your gut is leaning towards. But I mean, you've got solid value guys, you've got solid spend up guys. It kind of just comes down to what the value is in the rest of the spots, and we're gonna touch on them as we go position by position. We'll talk on some of the value that we have on this slate. We do have some solid value. We do have some receivers in that mid 4K, low 4K range. We do have some 3K ish range guys like Callaway with no Michael Thomas. So we do have spots that make it so that paying up at quarterback should be fairly decent to do, but it just comes all down to lineup construction and how you want to play this slate, because not only do we have great quarterback options, but we have fantastic running back options as well. We have some of the best running backs in the entire league and some of the best matchups that you could ask for. So that's another thing. So I wanted to talk about Sam Darnold because he's cheap. Let's go back up in price. Let's talk Russell Wilson, who's a guy that people might possibly be slipping on. My bad. Might be sleeping on here. Going against the Colts. It is in Indianapolis, and the Colts defense is solid, but towards the end of the year last year, they really started giving it up secondary wise. They were bottom in the league, allowing almost 300 passing yards a game. They gave up almost 29 to Derek Carr, over 27 to Deshaun Watson, and then 28 to Roethlisberger. They really broke down secondary wise at the end of the season. They do have a lot of talent on this Colts defense, so I expect them to be decent, but Russell Wilson's got too many targets on this offense not to have any interest in him at all. The only down part about Wilson here is that, especially in cash games, there's guys cheaper than him that I feel just as good about. But in GPPs, stacking Wilson with Lockett and Metcalf, I mean, that's always a recipe for possible success. Now, this isn't normally I would rather do it against a different defense than the Colts because, like I said, the Colts are a very talented defense. They have a lot of talent on that defense, but at the end of the year last year, they did give it up at a good bit. All right. Let's go back up to the main stud of the slate. Let's go back up and let's talk about Patrick Mahomes. I know I'm all over the place, but just feel me out. I have these guys, some notes down about some of these guys all over. Now, obviously, Patrick Mahomes is in play every single week. Okay. I mean, he's a guy that you can possibly play at any moment. Now, he's not much of a, like, the only time you really second guess it and, really, is if you think the game's going to be completely lopsided and they might not need Mahomes to do a ton of throwing. I think this game is going to be a pretty damn good game, man. I mean, this Cleveland secondary gave up a ton of points to Ben Roethlisberger at the end of the year last year, over 37. Ben's got a good amount of weapons on that Pittsburgh offense, so that's cool. I get it. But I mean, man, like Cleveland definitely gave it up, and Patrick Mahomes here in this spot is in a solid position here. He did only get 21 against Cleveland last year, but I mean at the end of the day, I think Patrick Mahomes is a beautiful option here. He's at home in Kansas City. He's 8-1, and that's the only thing that brings me down on him is because once again he is 8-1 and he is fairly expensive on a slate where you have a ton of quarterback options, and that's why personally, I'm not going to have a ton of Patrick Mahomes because there's so many options that are cheaper than him on this slate that I have interest in. All right. Who else? Obviously, Matt Ryan on the other side of the game is fine as well. The main reason, one of the big things that sticks out to me here is that if you go back and look at the millionaire makers in week one every year, right? There's one thing that majority of the winners have in common, and that's a stack of the quarterback with two of his receivers and then running it back on the other side with another one, which is why we went Ryan, Ridley, Pitts, and then ran it back with Rieger in the first look lineup. Once again, that's one of my favorite stacks of the slate. It still is. Nothing has changed. I still love Matt Ryan because at the end of the day, I feel more comfortable with that stack than I do like a Philly stack of like Devontae Smith, Rieger, and Jalen Hurts. And so, it's just not as good as Matt Ryan, Ridley, and Pitts. That's just a very solid option. And Pitts is a good price as well. I mean, Pitts has wide receiver one potential, and he's priced at like the same prices around Rieger and shit. So Kyle Pitts is a solid option. He's a receiver that the league does not have right now, and he is definitely going to have a solid season and a solid game. It's solid potential here against Philly. But that's the main reason I love Matt Ryan because my gut is screaming to me like, man, if you're gonna have a chance at that top spot, that could definitely be the stack that does it. And they're at home in a dome. It's always good. All right. Let's talk about Jimmy G, who won that starting job over there in San Francisco. Jimmy Garoppolo at 5'5". Now you run the risk of Jimmy G having a struggle in the beginning and getting replaced by Trey Lance in any given game, because Trey Lance is right on his heels. But Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, the matchup's great. They gave up a ton of points last season, dude. I mean, Detroit is garbage. This is in a dome, which is always good for quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins 37, Tom Brady 32, Ryan Tannehill 37, Aaron Rodgers 30. I mean, they just got trashed at the end of the year last year, and they are just not a good defense at all. And this is not a spot really to overthink too much. Once again, he's a good, cheap value option, and we have a million of them. Let's talk Mac Jones. So Mac Jones took that starting spot away from Cam Newton, and look at that price. 4-4 for our boy Mac Jones. Now, he looks very solid in the preseason, looked real comfortable back there. And this is a Miami secondary that gave up over 26 to Derek Carr. And if they can give up over 26 to Derek Carr, then I feel decent about Mac Jones here. He doesn't have the greatest weapons, which is the thing that kind of bothers me here in New England. I mean, their receivers are kind of suspect. But like I said, at only 4-4, you don't need a ton out of him. And I do expect Miami to be able to score here in this game. So expect him to have to throw a good bit. Miami did rank nearish the bottom in the league, allowing over 270 passing yards per game last season. So I like this spot for Mac Jones at 4-4. He's serviceable. He's not super high on my playlist, but he's serviceable. Other people that are high on my list of plays this week. Let's talk Kyler Murray, because Kyler Murray is another guy like Josh Allen. He's got so much potential on his feet. But the difference is that you're getting Josh Allen for cheaper than Kyler Murray. A couple hundred cheaper, but you're getting him cheaper nonetheless. Kyler Murray's going against Tennessee, but you got to understand it too, is you get Josh Allen cheaper, but the matchup is against Pittsburgh. So it kind of just, your tolerance level and how much risk you really want to take here. But Kyler Murray going against Tennessee is a solid spot. At the end of the year, Lamar Jackson 28, Deshaun Watson 29, Aaron Rodgers 26 against this Tennessee defense. Tennessee was bottom in the league, nearest the bottom again, allowing over 275 passing yards a game. It was another team that gave up a lot of passing attempts. So Tennessee's offense was moving so well, and that's another thing that I expect to happen here. I expect Tennessee to be able to, put some points up and need Kyler Murray to really stay active the entire game and put up some points. So Kyler Murray, what he can do on his feet, what he can do through the air. I mean, having DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, you always got to love the quarterback for DeAndre Hopkins. Outside of that, on the other side, I have some interest in Ryan Tannehill. He's solid, but my main core of guys, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Wilson, Mahomes is kind of like a core that I really, really like on this slate, and Matt Ryan. All right, so there's solid options here on this slate that I really, really like at quarterback. All right, let's switch over to running back. And let's talk running backs on this slate. Now, top of the list for me and a guy that really sticks out is James Robinson. James Robinson's going against Houston. Houston was, oh my goodness, bad. Allowing over a rushing touchdown a game. Allowing, over 140 rushing yards a game. Like, they are bad. All right, James Robinson is solid here. Obviously, his competition got hurt. ETN, and he's not going to have that guy nipping at his heels all season. So James Robinson is the guy in Jacksonville. He's going to get a good workload here. They're not going to want to try to push Trevor Lawrence too crazy. They're going to try to, establish the run pretty much, open things up for Trevor Lawrence, make it a little easier, maybe slow the game down a little bit. They're going to run the ball a lot here in Jacksonville. And James Robinson, Derrick Henry 39, Giovanni Bernard 20. Jonathan Taylor, 19. David Montgomery got over 27 against this defense. Like, they gave it up every single week. And at 6'4", James Robinson has to be a guy that you have in play. Dalvin Cook. Wrong guy, Derrick Henry. Dalvin Cook going against Cincinnati. Cincinnati, another one of those defenses. They gave up over 31 to J.K. Dobbins. All right. They gave it up to running backs again last year. It's the same situation here. A lot because teams were getting up on Cincinnati and just running the shit out of the ball. And that was a big deal, too. With Joe Burrow back, maybe the game stays a little bit closer. But either way, Dalvin Cook's a huge focal point in this offense. And he's a guy that's going to get used heavily here. You're having to spend a shit ton of money for Dalvin Cook. But once again, it just comes down to roster construction and where you feel comfortable with the value. And if you feel comfortable enough to spend up certain spots. Alvin Kamara. All right, with Michael Thomas out, Alvin Kamara will be a stud every single week, plain and simple. Don't overthink this. When Michael Thomas is out, Alvin Kamara is an absolute stud. They line him out at receiver. I mean, he can run the ball between the tackles. He can take it outside. He can catch the ball. I mean, he does everything for this offense. Expect them to really rely heavily on Alvin Kamara here. And I love Alvin Kamara at 8'6". Absolutely love him. So Christian McCaffrey, we got to talk about McCaffrey. I mean, a lot of people I feel like are going to be sleeping on him, but this is one of the best PPR style running backs that you can ask for in this league. He gets thrown to so much. Expect Sam Darnold to check down to him a good bit. I mean, at the end of the day, the Jets are a bad defense. I'm not going to say that. They're okay. They're okay against the run, too. I mean, they had their moments where they were solid against the run. But Christian McCaffrey is a receiver. I mean, and in PPR formats for Draftkings, he has to be considered. So Christian McCaffrey is fantastic here. And like I said, he's just Christian McCaffrey. So I don't think you need to overthink it too much here. If you play Sam Darnold, pairing him with Christian McCaffrey makes complete sense because McCaffrey is a fucking receiver. All right. Who else is really popping up high for me at running back? Raheem Mostert. Raheem Mostert really pops for me. I'm gonna update that projection. By the way, I've got some updating I need to do on the projections as we go. And by the way, we're working on. I have my developer working on setting it up for us to be able to do showdown slates on the optimizer as well. So just stay tuned for that. It's being worked on as we speak. Should be here hopefully by Monday. But Raheem Mostert is 5'8". He's going against a dreadful defense in Detroit. It's a fantastic spot here. Expect them to not to try to push Jimmy G too much and have him doing too crazy things. Raheem Mostert had a solid preseason. This is a talented kid, man. Madison went up for almost 30 against them. The backup for Minnesota. 28 for Derrick Henry. That's to be expected. David Montgomery over 27. I think Mostert could absolutely destroy here, so I definitely want to mention him. Joe Mixon's going to see an uptick here, and he's going to have a better season with Joe Burrow being back. When teams are worried, when teams fear that you could air the ball out pretty efficiently, I mean, once Joe Burrow went away out of this offense, defense is pretty much new. Look, I mean, we shut down Joe Mixon. We're good. You know what I mean? And make them pass the ball. We're good. Joe Mixon's in a solid position here. I mean, Joe Mixon missed a lot of the year last year, and that's another thing. I mean, he missed from week 7 on, but he was doing pretty solid before then. He had a huge game against Jacksonville with 45. With Joe Burrow being in, I mean, it's just going to open things up for the run game. Joe Mixon's going to catch some passes. It's going to be a solid spot for him. So Joe Mixon's in a solid position here at home in Cincinnati going against Minnesota. I wanted to mention him. Let's not forget about Chase Edmonds. Let's not forget about our boy Chase Edmonds here. All right. So, Chase Edmonds is a fire PPR running back, plain and simple. He is a solid option here against Tennessee. Arizona is going to involve him in the pass game, obviously. I think he's a solid value option at 4.6. I think with you going Chase Edmonds, you are getting to the point where you're doing a little bit cheaper than you really necessarily need to. Like I said, when it comes to positions that have like super studs, yes, wide receiver has some great matchups, but running back really sticks out to me as some great matchups as well, with Dalvin Cook having the matchup he has, James Robinson having the matchup he has. Like, there's some really good spots, but Chase Edmonds could be sneaky here against Tennessee. All right, plain and simple. I mean, they gave up over 23 to Swift. They give up over a rushing touchdown per game. Chase Edmonds is a guy, and like I said, this is PPR format over on DraftKings. So it's a beautiful spot for Chase Edmonds to succeed here. Mike Davis on my Falcons. Got to talk about Mike Davis because I think he's going to shine on the Falcons squad. You guys know how he did last season. You guys know how he showed out for Carolina. This dude's a solid ass running back. When he's getting majority of the carries, he can absolutely go crazy. He is a very good PPR running back as well. He can catch the ball very, very well. This is a great spot here against Philly here. So yeah, Mike Davis could be very sneaky as well. And if you're just trying to stack up in this game, or like let's say you switch it, instead of doing the Atlanta stack, you decide you want to do the Philly side, and you go Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, Rieger, or Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, and somebody else. Either way, you can run that back with Mike Davis. You know what I mean? You can, like, on the other side. So I completely understand that. And Mike Davis is one of the guys, like, he's going to get carries between the tackles if Atlanta's up. And he's going to get passes in the pass game if Atlanta's down. So either game script that you can imagine here in this game, Mike Davis should have some involvement. And at 5'4", he's solid. The only thing that bothers me with Mike Davis a little bit is some games he would just get barely any carries. You know what I mean? Which I didn't understand. He's not a guy they really felt comfortable with in Carolina giving him like 20 carries or something. He's not like a ball hog. You know what I mean? Where he just gets the ball all the fucking time. He's not that kind of guy, but Atlanta might use him that way. And I expect some good targets out of him. Atlanta's got some great guys in the receiving core. I mean, Ridley, Pitts are going to put some pressure on that secondary. That should open up some stuff down low for Mike Davis to be able to take advantage of. So I fully expect them to utilize Mike Davis pretty well here in this. All right. We're at the 20-minute mark, so I'm going to start moving a little quicker. That's pretty much my main guys that I'm interested in this week. I pretty much talked about every single one of them. Let's switch over to wide receiver. All right. Over here at wide receiver. Now, at wide receiver, my main focus here is just letting y'all know, dependent on what quarterback you decide to go in your lineup or whatever your favorite lineup ends up being, I encourage you to pair him with somebody. So if you have Matt Ryan, go Calvin Ridley, who is my favorite receiver of this slate. DeAndre Hopkins went off for over 34 against this team last season. Devontae Adams went over 37. Calvin Ridley is going to be a top receiver in this league with no Julio Jones, guaranteed. He's a fantastic route runner. It doesn't really matter the matchup because he can get open, create space. Matt Ryan can get him the ball. And they love throwing the ball in Atlanta. So expect that. And with that defense being not too good, most times they're going to have to throw a lot. So as you noticed last season, majority of the time Atlanta was throwing the ball. So that's obviously a good position that you want to be in when you're choosing your wide receiver. So Calvin really is a fantastic option at 7-9, and he is priced up there with the studs, but don't get it confused. He is a stud, and he belongs up here. Okay? Tyreek Hill, if you're going Patty Mahomes, plain and simple. Pair him with Tyreek. Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams here, him and Aaron Rodgers is always a good cash game pairing, and it will always be fine to use. This dude's the most targeted receiver in the entire league. It's a beautiful spot here. All right, plain and simple. It's just Lattimore is solid. Lattimore does seem to step up against big time receivers, and he is going against Marshawn Lattimore. But this is Devontae Adams. I'm never going to come on here and say don't play Devontae Adams. You're always okay to play Devontae Adams, just depending on game script and which way you want to go. I will say this: Aaron Rodgers paired with Devontae will be an incredibly low owned pairing this week, and they always have the potential to go absolutely nuts. All right, so I will say that that is something that is enticing to me about them is that I don't see their ownership being high this week, but yet they are a pairing that could score the most points out of any pairing in the slate. All right, Josh Allen. I talked about loving Josh Allen. Stephon Diggs is one of the best receivers in this entire league, and he is an absolute monster. I love Stephon Diggs this week. It is a solid spot for my boy Diggs. He was getting targeted a ton last season. I mean, he was one of the higher targeted guys on the slate as well. He's going to go against Witherspoon, who's not the greatest cornerback in all of the world. I love this. I expect, like I said earlier, I think Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs pairing will be low owned. And I think, once again, Josh Allen, what he can do with his feet regardless, is a beast. And Stephon Diggs is a great pairing with him this week. I think they are a solid GPP pairing. I don't think many people are going to do it because the matchups against Pittsburgh. And yes, Pittsburgh's line is good. TJ Watt just signed a new contract. He's the highest paid defensive player in the entire league for good reason. He is a absolute monster, but Josh Allen is a solid guy. He can really do it on the feet, and they don't have much of a run game. Like, if they run, it's mostly Josh Allen. You know what I mean? Plain and simple. So Josh Allen's going to do it on his feet. He's going to get some yards. And I mean, at the end of the day, that's the thing and that's why majority of the time this pairing works out, because you just can't stop it. I mean, Stephon Diggs, his lowest performance last season against anybody was 10. Okay? Think of that. His floor is 10. His upside is 45. Josh Allen, same thing. His floor was very, very solid because of what he can do with his feet. I mean, this dude finds a way to get in the end zone. Once they get to the red zone, Josh Allen finds a way to get in that end zone. So that's what I'm saying is this a good low-owned pairing, and I like the matchup against Witherspoon for Diggs. He's a fantastic route runner, and he's going to get some openings. DK Metcalf, obviously, if you're going Russell Wilson, Metcalf is little baby Megatron. He's a beast. He's going to have a solid year. Let's talk cheap guys real quick. We talked about Callaway earlier. Still love Marquez Callaway. No Michael Thomas. Callaway is one of the best value options on the entire slate. All right? I'm going to zone in on value guys right now. So Marquez Callaway is an option for sure. Marvin Jones, I really, really like here. for Jacksonville going against Houston. He's facing Vernon Hargraves. It's a solid matchup here. I mean, he's one of my favorite liked value plays as well. Marvin Jones is a absolute monster. You saw what he did in Detroit. He is just a stud, honestly. He can make some wild catches. So Marvin Jones at 3.6 seems a little too cheap for a stud receiver like Marvin. And in a solid matchup against Houston. AJ Green seems like a solid option as well for Arizona, giving Kyler Murray an extra target here with this Tennessee defense focused in on DeAndre Hopkins. That should open things up for AJ Green. Janoris Jenkins got lit up last season. All right, he got lit up. So AJ Green's a solid option at 3.8 as well, especially if you're playing Kyler Murray. What other value plays? Michael Pittman Jr. Michael Pittman Jr. going against Seattle. Now, we talked about it. Seattle's offense is so good, they're going to score. Regardless of who they're facing, they're going to score. So the Colts are going to have to keep up. Now, with T.Y. Hilton out, it's a fantastic option for Michael Pittman. I'm a huge fan of Michael Pittman. I think this kid's going to be legit. All right, so I'm a huge fan of this kid. I think he's a solid option at 4-1. Devontae Smith paired with Jalen Hurts, obviously, is a solid option. Jalen Reagor is a solid option as well. Terrence Marshall Jr., if you're playing Sam Darnold, you can go that route as well. So they're all solid options. Let's talk spend ups. Let's go back to spend ups. Any spend ups I missed? Not really. I mean, and that's part of the building that I've liked lately is spending on running back too. Because when it comes to receivers, outside of Calvin Ridley, obviously you have Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, stuff like that. But in cash games, I'm really liking some of these value guys. Like I'm liking the Callaway, Marvin Jones, AJ Green, Michael Pittman range guys. Like there's plenty of receivers that I feel really comfortable with. So yeah, that's a position that I really really liked this week. Tight end. Kyle Pitts and Kyle Pitts alone. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, I love Kyle Pitts this week. Obviously, Travis Kelce's an absolute stud. I'm not going to take too much time on this because there's really a small core of guys that I'm using this week when it comes to this. So price-wise, Kyle Pitts is the number one guy on my list. Love Kyle Pitts at his price. Tyler Conklin, I want to mention because he's only 2.9 and he's the main tight end for Minnesota. He's looking like a good spot here as well. I really like this spot for Conklin. Conklin's a talented dude. He's very athletic. Going against Cincinnati is a good spot. And at the end of the last year, he really put up some decent numbers, 9, 14, 7, and 7. So Conklin at 2.9 is interesting for sure. And I think with Burrow being back to Cincinnati, that Cincinnati offense should be able to score and force Minnesota to, keep it active. All right? But that's pretty much it. I mean, and obviously George Kittle, Travis Kelce, if you're playing their quarterback, go ahead and pair them up. Let's talk defense. Again, I've been punting a lot here. I'm talking a ton. I've been punting a ton here. Uh, you can go so many ways, man. You can say, fuck it. I'm going to go with the talent that the Colts have because they're incredibly cheap. All right, I can understand. Look, the matchup sucks against Seattle, but they're at home and they are a talented defense. Could they cause some turnovers? Sure. All right, and they're only 2-3. Buffalo Bills against Pittsburgh. Buffalo Bills, again, a top-notch defense at only 2-5 because they're facing Pittsburgh. The Atlanta Falcons, I'm not going to say they're a top-notch defense, but they can put some pressure on you and create some turnovers. They're really good at creating turnovers, and they're going against Philly, which could end up being decent for them. And they're at home in Atlanta, first game of the year, bare min 2K. So I know a lot of people who are making multiple lineups that are going to have plenty of the Falcons D just because they just want to punt defense this week and don't really give a shit to spend money at defense. And that's kind of how I feel right now as well. I kind of feel the same way. It's like I don't really care too much about spending on defense. Obviously, I mean you could go Broncos, you could go Giants in that game because neither side really feels great to me offensively. So either side could be solid. There's plenty of ways that you could go. You could go Jacksonville because Houston's defense sucks, like we talked about. But Houston is at home. Maybe they find a way to get it done. Tyrod Taylor, maybe he comes out and just shows out. Who knows, dude? Honestly, but most of the time, I like to spend down a defense unless you just have a core number one spot that's just like, wow, that defense could go absolutely nuts and be like a stud player type performance. This week, there's plenty of cheap options. I mean, it just comes down to which cheap option you like. And like I said, we talked about multiple of those options. I lane Jaguars as one of my favorites at 2.7 because Houston is so down and out right now. I mean, it's bad. The Colts are a very talented defense, like I said. Got a lot of talent on that defense at only 2.3. Buffalo Bills, at home, always good. Falcons at home. So Colts at home, Bills at home, Falcons at home. Those are three cheap defenses that are at home that a lot of times, you know what I mean, like decent options. Nothing that really sticks out like, oh my God, I have to have that. But they're all decent options and they're solid value options. So that's pretty much it, y'all. Thank you guys for joining me as always. Drop a like down below, comment anything in the comment section. And let's get this fucking money week 1, man. I'm super excited about this week. Let's get it. Peace out. Greenlightdfs.com. Join the squad, and I'm out.